So I wanted to take some time to talk about AOC, specifically her response to a question from a drop site news reporter about whether or not she would endorse Saikat Chakrabarti, who is running to replace Nancy Pelosi. Now, this is a race that you would think would be of particular interest to her because this is her former chief of staff, so there's a relationship there, and you would think that she would want to see him succeed since he worked for her. But when she was asked whether or not she would support him, she really didn't give a concrete answer.
You have a close relationship.
I think for me overall, it's more about I'm trying to think about the role that I am trying to play more broadly in these things. You know, we've got 435 seats in Congress, right? And there is this kind of moment where it's like and not just with this race, but with any race, once you go in, then it's like, what about this? What about this? What about this one? And I'm one person with, a pretty amazing, crack, but also lean team. And so we're thinking about kind of like how much of myself I'm pouring into this and how much of myself we want to make sure that we're, pouring into the task at hand. Like, what we've got going on here. So, but I think that what I will say is that I think that the primary environment that we're seeing is really great. I think that progressives have already notched some really impressive victories this early into the primary season. And we've got another, 6 or 7 months of it to go. And I'm looking forward to having a lot of new colleagues here in November that we can, it's been a really lonely road for the first 8 years, and I'm really hoping that it'll be a little less lonely in November.
My boss has a book about that.
Now, because of that non-answer, people began to speculate about whether or not there was some bad blood between her and Saikat, and it's really hard to say. For me, that was my instinct as well, but at the same time, there are other candidates that you would think she'd want to endorse but hasn't endorsed, like Kat Abou-Gazelle and others. So I don't necessarily know that that's the case. I think that maybe she's just being overly cautious, but she very clearly heard some of the feedback that she got from that, and when she was asked again, she had an even more non-answer. In fact, she decided to just not address it. Here's the video.
After our last interview, there was a bit of a response regarding Saikat, and I just wanted to give you an opportunity to clear up anything if they, some people said that you guys might have personal beef, anything like that, or what was the nature of your working relationship?
I'm just not commenting on the race. Yeah.
And nothing on those grounds regarding the personal stuff?
I'm just not commenting on it at all.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
So she very clearly doesn't want to talk about that. And when you take into account that, along with other comments she made about the left more broadly speaking being overly critical of her, I'm paraphrasing, but she made some comments about how she believes she's treated unfairly by the left, you can really sense that there's some tension there between her and the left. And I wanted to speak to that because it is there. It's a little bit awkward between the left and AOC, and I think that it needs to be explored a little bit more, so that way we can reach some sort of agreement or ceasefire, because I don't necessarily think it's intentional. I don't think that it's bad faith when the left criticizes her, and I think that there is potential for an understanding here. There just needs to be a pathway of communication that very clearly doesn't exist. So here's my thoughts. First and foremost, I think that regardless if AOC wants to acknowledge this or not, she is viewed as one of, if not the leaders of the progressive left. And with that comes a lot of expectations. She has a phenomenal voting record, so people expect the politics to match, but it doesn't from time to time. A lot of people are confused by her unwillingness to endorse more progressives. There's a lot of phenomenal progressives running across the country, and she doesn't really stump for them very frequently. I understand that she wants to make sure that they're viable, and she wants to keep her powder dry, so that way she's not endorsing so many candidates that are losing, because then that kind of diminishes her credibility. But when there are winnable races and she sits them out, I think that leaves a bad taste in people's mouth, because it gives them the impression that she is overly cautious and at worst, that she's trying to pull the ladder up from behind her, when I don't think that's actually the case. I think that that's a miscommunication, but people think that because she's not willing to take risks and endorse more progressives. And overall, it's clear that AOC, I think that she's cautious because just quite frankly, she doesn't have the best political instincts. There are things that she's done that have backfired for her. For example, when she was unendorsed by DSA temporarily after she voted against ending offensive weapons to Israel. I think that was the reason, but she was unendorsed for a time. On top of that, she was opposed to the effort to remove Biden in 2024. Bernie was as well, so he doesn't have the best track record when it comes to political instincts. But, things like that have, I think, led to criticism, and it's made her a little bit more cautious and reluctant to put herself out there. But the problem is that if you are viewed as a leader, regardless if you want to be viewed that way or not, you're going to kind of have to take risks. And there needs to be, if you're not going to take risks, there needs to be, one, more communication, I think, as to why you're not taking more risks. Not that she owes an explanation to anyone, but it would be nice. And two, there needs to be a payoff for all of the cautious politics, right? Another area is that, she's been very clearly more deferential towards leadership when a lot of us expected her to be more of a disruptor. When she got in there, she was protesting in Nancy Pelosi's office in day one, and now she very clearly never really challenges leadership. And I think that people would see what she was going for if that strategy had some sort of payoff, but it very clearly has not had a payoff. When she ran for a leadership position last year, they opted for Jerry Connolly over her, who was dying of cancer and died just a couple of months later. So if all of the cautious politics that she was playing had yielded some sort of payoff, people would understand that. But it's not working, and people don't understand it. So there's this question of what exactly is she doing? We want to understand her thought process, which is why I think that it would be beneficial to her and the left, more broadly speaking, if she actually communicated with people who support her and who agree with her on 99.9% of the policies. What exactly is your thinking for this particular strategy? Why aren't you doing X? Why aren't you doing Y? And again, she doesn't have to explain herself, but when you are viewed as one of, if not the leaders of the left, there's this expectation that you are going to have this line of communication. You are going to talk to people about why you're making the decisions that you're making. But that brings me to a different area where I think there's this disconnect that's forming between AOC and the left. When it comes to media, AOC prefers to do Instagram lives and more mainstream media appearances, but she very rarely goes on independent news. And I think that it would behoove her to do these long-form interviews where she's asked tough questions in a setting that is safer, where she's not going to be canceled for saying the wrong thing, where she can really explore different policies and explain her thinking and her political strategy. But she hasn't done that, and the distance between her and the online commentariat has kind of created this perception that there's a distance between her and the left, because you have to understand that shows like Breaking Points and Secular Talk, all these shows that would have her on, they have very close connections with their audience. And so they oftentimes are going to field questions from the audience or be more tapped into what the audience wants, which is not the case with mainstream media. So if there was this sense from the left, collectively speaking, that she was fielding their questions and clearing up confusion and explaining her strategy more, then I think that that would kind of help mend fences. Not that the relationship between AOC and the left is severed. It's just there's some awkward tension, right? But, we don't get that. And to add insult to injury, she doesn't really explain her thinking. So with the Saikat situation, we're kind of left wondering what exactly is the problem here. Is there something about Saikat that we should know that she doesn't want to tell us? Is it that deep? It probably isn't that deep because she hasn't endorsed other candidates that you'd think she'd want to endorse, like Kat Abu-Ghazaleh. It just doesn't necessarily make sense. And I think that to be a leader of the left, we shouldn't have to have these questions. There should be a line of communication between you and at least one other online commentator. But the fact that there's not just leads people to speculate, and speculation sometimes leads to bad conclusions that end up leading to criticism that she doesn't like, that she feels is unfair. But I mean, it's a two-way street, right? If you want to have the left be more respectful, you've kind of got to show that respect to them as well. So I don't know really what to make of the situation. I think just personally speaking, I feel like it would benefit AOC if she was just open and honest and just said, I don't fuck with Saikat. I don't like him personally. Something like that. At least we would know. But since we're left to wonder what the reason is why she won't endorse someone who logically it makes sense to endorse, who is on the cusp of winning. It just is a situation that I think is a missed opportunity, right? And this has happened again and again with AOC, but it's kind of why, like, just personally speaking, like, I still find AOC to be a leader. I think she's phenomenal. Again, excellent voting record, but like this kind of blunts some of my excitement about the prospect of her running for president in 2028. Because if you have amazing policies, that's one thing. That's excellent. But there's another component to it. You also have to be able to play politics, and everything that I've seen from AOC has not given me the most confidence that she is capable of playing politics that are necessary to get the policies that she wants actualized. And that right there is an issue. I think that she could be better at playing politics. I mean, that's subjective, right? Maybe you disagree with me and think that she's playing politics well, but I think that she could be better if she did do more to engage with the left, engage some of their criticisms, respond to the complaints about her no longer being disruptive and being more deferential towards leadership. Again, she doesn't owe an explanation to anyone, right? She's not like owned by the left. She is her own person. But I think that since so many people see her as a leader and she isn't living up to that expectation in certain ways, I think it's causing this rift between her and the left, which is a missed opportunity, because when you have the left united and her with the left, that's kind of like fuel in the wind in her sails, then I think she would be even more effective and more powerful. So I just feel like there needs to be more of an effort made by her, but also an effort made by the left to be a little bit more charitable and a little bit more good faith, because there are a lot of people online who just like shit on AOC relentlessly for no reason. Every fart that she makes is criticized. Every single thing that she says is overly scrutinized. And I understand, just from a human perspective, that can drain you. It can make you feel like you're doing all of this for nothing, and the people who are theoretically on your side aren't on your side. So I understand that, but at the same time, like, there needs to be something from the leader, an olive branch offered from the leader, to get people to kind of see where she's coming from, because she is a leader, like it or not, after all. So, I mean, those are my thoughts. It's kind of scattered. I just wanted to share like my off the cuff thinking here, because, you know, it does bother me that she isn't giving us an answer. I feel like we're adults. We're not owed an answer. We're not entitled to know AOC's thinking, but I just feel like, you know, if this was a one-off, it'd be one thing, but this is kind of a trend for AOC, and it's creating this tension between her and the left that I don't like, because if she does choose to run for president in 2028, I want her to be unstoppable. But there are criticisms and elephants in the room that have to be addressed if she's going to be the effective leader that we all want her to be. Maybe she doesn't want to be the leader that we want her to be. But regardless, I just feel like there needs to be an effort by both sides, to be clear, not to fence it, but by both sides to try to nurture this relationship, because if she doesn't tell us what we're thinking and we're left to speculate, which leads to criticism, then things are just going to like get worse and worse. So I don't want that to be the case, but it seems like that is going to be the case, because, you know, on one hand, she does something good. She chooses to not support offensive weapons to Israel, gets applauded by the left, and then a week or two later, she's making a puzzling decision to not endorse Saikat, her former chief of staff. And I don't get it, and I would like to get it, but, you know, if she's not going to fill us in, then we're just left to wonder, what the fuck is she doing, and does she know how to play politics? So, you know, that's my criticism. She might agree, disagree, but regardless, if she does, it comes in good faith. I want to root for AOC. I want to be excited about the prospect of an AOC presidency, but I think that these are things that need to be addressed in order to make her that much more effective as a leader, if she wants to be a leader.